Salutations, listeners. Sivalas Valeo.
Valar Magulis.
Nanu.
See, what I just did, that's called a curveball.
Yeah,
like
that
it.
one got me.
I like that it curved.
Y'all don't play baseball.
Yeah, curves are good sometimes.
Thank you for tuning in. This is Three Men and a Basement, and we are the Ultra Crepidarians. My name is Colin McLeod.
Mark up here.
Action Jackson.
Xmas, Jackson, Flaxen, Waxen.
That's what they call me.
For those of you keeping score at home.
Yeah.
2 waxins and a flaxen.
Woof.
Dare you to find them.
It's yuck.
That's a deep flaxen.
He flexed right in that. In this movie-themed podcast, we like to review those movie-type things that move on the screen and or
the
portal?
or the burlap sack you've got stapled up to your mom's basement wall.
Yeah.
You know?
We review those things.
I love it.
But not all of them. What's our criteria, gentlemen?
Well, we're not doing a Star Wars.
We're not doing a Star Wars. We're not taking the high road.
Nope.
We're not taking the low road.
What's the low road? Give me an example of a low road. A movie that we all have heard of that wouldn't count.
I can't.
That's right.
Because we've never heard of it.
And we never would do those kinds
Exactly.
of things.
Instead, we aim for that delightful sweet spot right in the middle. Those movies that maybe you've heard about, maybe you haven't. Maybe you saw them once upon a time and you're wondering if they're worth a rewatch. Don't go and rewatch it. That's stupid. That's dumb. Don't be dumb.
It's dangerous.
It's so dangerous. Let us do that for you. And then we'll tell you all about the movie, and then it'll be like you watched it anyway, and we'll get the sweet, sweet cred. That's what we're after.
We'll take that hit for you.
We just want to be popular.
Sweet, sticky stuff.
Yeah, we're going to take it right on the chin.
Taking all the sticky stuff.
Yep. For you. Not for me.
And this is like being recorded, so no big deal saying that.
Right.
Nah.
We review those movies and deliver to you our opinion about whether or not you need to track them down again and watch them.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you don't.
Yeah, it's kind of a toss-up. Yeah, maybe not. I think it's more in favor of watch, but...
Almost always.
This week, for our 55th
55th
episode of the podcast.
Let's keep it going.
Our 55th episode of the podcast.
You went a little Swedish there.
We reviewed the movie...
Ghost Dog.
Ghost Dog!
Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai.
I was going to do that too.
Every 5th episode, as you might recall, is a user submission for us. So this episode of the podcast was submitted by friend of the show, Pi.
Pie.
Hi, Pie.
Pi. 3.14.
Wow. Those are digits.
Those are digits. This fella calculates areas of the circle like you wouldn't fucking believe.
That's impressive.
Calculate my circle.
I'm just analyzing what it would take for him to calculate the area of your circle.
Lots of numbers.
Lots of numbers. Lots
Spread.
of hard math. Lots of stiff math.
Yep.
Spread those digits.
Put them in the sheets.
Going to perform an operation. Gross.
Calculation.
PEMDAS.
What was that?
The PEMDAS, It's the
PEMDAS?
whatever,
Ah, yes. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
love it. Like, I'm so glad you put that together.
I did. You were leaving me in the dust, but then I caught up with the car running really, really fast.
Yeah.
Got in real quick.
Man.
So Pi submitted this. What a champ. And I'll read you what he said about the movie in our spoiler section of the episode. But thank you, Mr. Pi, for submitting that for us. I had never even heard of this movie.
No, not.
Nope.
Same.
3 cherries right around. The only thing we knew about this movie was I knew the main actor and the title because I had to buy the movie in order for us to watch it.
Yeah.
That is it. We specifically made ourselves as ignorant as possible about this.
I do that every day.
You excel at that.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that this movie, Ghost Dog, terrible name.
Ghost Dog.
We'll talk about it because it makes more sense after you watch it. But I feel like the title of the movie almost stands as a barrier to watching it.
While I do agree that I think it suggests something other than what it is, and so it might, as you put it, stand as a barrier, I do think the title is fitting for thinky reasons that we'll get into in spoiler territory.
Once you've seen it, it makes more sense.
Yes. Okay, so Ghost Dog. Let's hit you with some specs.
Yeah.
Some spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch. Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai, 1999 film, rated R, yes.
Yes.
Definitely rated R.
Yep.
1 hour and 56 minutes.
It felt that.
This movie was so weird because it, like...
I felt like it dragged on.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so... For me, I felt like the pacing was slow, but the movie overall moved quickly. Like, I did not feel like it dragged. And actually, I thought the pacing was, like, perfect for this movie. But somehow, any individual, like, segment... I get why you said that. I disagree, but I get it.
Yeah.
The thing for me is, like, it felt like it could have ended, like, 4 times. Mm-hmm. And then there was always more movie.
That's the best.
Until
that's the best
there wasn't.
It's the best.
For me, I agree. There were points during this movie where I felt like it probably should have ended, perhaps. And when the next scene would, like, kick in, I would then be kind of, like, racking my brain for, like, okay, what loose ends could we possibly be tying up? And I feel, again, subjective, I feel like they could have trimmed off 20 to 30 minutes.
Well, I mean, the movie went along for a very specific reason. That exact pacing is the way of the samurai.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, so in case you were wondering...
This is the way.
Yeah, that's the way.
Do we know somebody that could, like, help us out in describing this movie?
Hey, I'm over here.
I know a guy, and he's notorious for, like, shouting at a distance.
Ooh, yeah.
You talking about me?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, is that Reed?
Reed. Description?
Yeah.
Oh,
Reed might be in pain right now.
It's, yeah.
We were ignoring him for a second, and he is in agony.
I'm going to change my voice because no one understands me.
I think that's the first time that it actually picked you up on the wave pattern there.
Son of a bitch. Where did we go? An African-American mafia hitman who models himself after the samurai of old finds himself targeted for death by the mob.
That's
That's
pretty...
Yeah, that's it.
That's pretty tight, yeah.
What's fucked up about that is, like, I want to be honest, this just shows my own shortcomings. It's like, I'm sitting there going, like, how the fuck are they going to summarize this movie? There's so much to it.
Yeah.
And then they said that, I was like, oh, yeah, well,
So
I guess if you reduce it down to its base
I
components,
guess if you just want to boil it down.
Yeah, that's it. It's almost like a summary or something. You know?
Synopsis.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I am no good at those things.
No, it takes me like an hour to describe a movie that is like 90 minutes.
Yeah. Toy Story, they're like, yeah, toys come to life.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, but what about Sid?
Right. So much more than that.
And there's the truck, and you can't forget about Pizza Planet.
Slinky Dog.
Yeah, and the little green men.
Oh, the claw.
It has chosen.
Yeah, so you can't leave any of that
Right?
on the table.
All of that also, by the way, in Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai.
Yes.
Those are all heavily featured. So.
Yep.
Okay, Genry's.
Short and sweet this time. We just got crime and drama.
I feel like that's not enough, but I don't know what I would put in there in addition.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple. I mean, I feel like it's right on the border of action.
Yeah.
I don't think it might not be action, but it's right on the border of it. And then, I mean...
The guy was
like
through like a one-man army.
The guy was like a one-man army.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
you gotta give him that.
Definitely.
I actually I have made that joke so much, I know you were anticipating it, but it's so actually apt for this movie.
In this movie, I will accept that one-man army is applicable.
But I will plant my flag on the hill that one-man army is not a fucking genre.
No, it's not.
It is not a fucking genre.
Yet I feel utility would argue otherwise.
I think you're a utility.
That's fine. You don't have to like the truth.
And that utility is gas.
Sometimes I got it.
You smell.
Natural gas.
Sometimes I don't. It is natural. All natural. I don't augment my gas is what I'm saying.
You don't?
No. Nope. Would never let a doctor up in there.
Who directed this movie?
Oh, good old Jim Jarmusch. Jarmusch?
Jim's a good guy.
Classic Jim.
Yep.
I'm looking through Jim's catalog here. Not a whole lot that I recognize. Anybody else got anything? Oh, Dead Man with Johnny Depp.
He did Broken Flowers.
Mm-hmm. And The Dead Don't Die. I have seen that.
Have you seen French Water?
I have not.
Yeah.
Is that just Evian?
Probably.
So I'm getting from this guy's catalog that he is one of those award-winning directors. The guy doesn't make pretty much anything that lands below like 7.0 on IMDb. So he's probably one of these like very fancy hoity-toity directors that all of the film heads are going to be listening to this going like, what the fuck? You don't know who that is? Sorry, guys. Jim Jarmusch, not our...
Jim Jarmusch.
Nope.
Jarmusch.
Who we got in this movie?
Okay, so I think there's one, obviously the lead, I feel, carried the movie. And the way that the movie played, it almost feels as though the writer intended that. All the gravitas, all the meat and potatoes was on Forest Whitaker. And this was a younger Forest Whitaker, but he still has that. I'd be curious to see movies that he's done maybe 10, 15 years prior to this movie. Because he has
Fast Times at Richmond High.
He was in it?
Oh, yeah, dude.
Oh, shit.
He played,
really?
He had a cool name. His name was like Sledge or something like that.
Of course it was.
He was the brother of the kid.
I need to rewatch that.
Then.
Yeah. Yeah. He just brings such like a weathered gravitas, like you take him seriously just looking at him.
Yeah. Another great Forest Whitaker movie that's on our list to do that I feel like fits our criteria perfectly, Blown Away with him and Jeff Bridges.
Oh, yeah.
Very good movie. Yeah, Forest Whitaker, you know him, you love him. Big Forest Whitaker movies. Last King of Scotland, he played Idi Amin.
That movie.
He was so good in that.
Black Panther, he was Zuri.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot he was in that franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Battlefield Earth, everybody loves that movie.
Oh my God. Dude.
I've wanted to do that movie on this podcast so many times, but like it either falls directly below our wavelength or...
I feel like that's on our wavelength.
I want to do it.
It's... Like, I grew up with that movie, and I have, like, a special place in my heart for it. But, like, as I grew, it was definitely one of those movies that I began to...
Oh, it's so bad.
Acknowledge how fucking objectively terrible it is.
It's so bad.
Somehow they got Forest Whitaker, fucking John Travolta, and Barry Pepper to all sign off on this.
Yeah!
I don't
to
remember...
make a fucking adaptation of an L. Ron Hubbard novel.
Yeah.
Like,
the first time I saw it, I liked it. But I think it's because I was, like, 10, maybe? Yeah.
Also, The Butler. He was Cecil Gaines.
Okay.
Cecil Gaines in The Butler. He was, let's say, The Butler.
You're right.
Just cleaning up, really.
He was also Saw Gerrera in Andor and, other Star Wars films. His role as Saw Gerrera was pretty fucking cool.
I thought we don't do a Star Wars.
We don't do a Star Wars, but he does.
We can talk about him a little bit.
Who else we got in this movie?
We got Henry Silva. He had a face that was somewhat recognizable, but looking through his filmography,
One Trick Pony.
He was in The Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah.
As Junjin.
Well, and he was Bane in the animated Batman series.
Okay, so another person that I just came across while we're scrolling through IMDb here. Young Ghost Dog in the movie.
Is his brother Damon.
Is it his brother?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, holy shit, he looks so much like Forest Whitaker. How did they find somebody like that? Like, this was before, aging down. They're like, oh my God, he looks so much like him.
Well, and it was kind of perfect because the timeline matched up almost exactly because he's 8 years younger than Forrest. We'll get into that in spoilers, but...
Yeah. Anybody else worth noting? I want to bring up John
Tormey?
Yep. Not just because he was, I guess, maybe would you put him at, like, number 2?
I would say he's a titular character for sure, just because, he was... pivotal to the story.
What are people gonna recognize him for though? Because he has a face that you've definitely seen, but the movies that I'm seeing here really don't jump out at me.
No, I mean American Loser, but
they made a documentary about you.
Yeah,
that was Mark.
Wow.
That was called A Sick Burn.
Nailed it.
That was called Uncalled For.
Clinically sick.
Wow.
Go to the doctor.
Maybe How Do You Know? That one was kind of a high-profile movie, but yeah, not a whole lot of highly recognizable films here. And I feel like that happens a lot with these typecast guys,
Yeah. He has that, and I feel as they were casting this movie, they wanted older Italian men who looked like caricatures of gangsters.
Yeah.
And he fit that bill.
Yeah.
One more before we move on, because this is not a very deep cast as far as recognizable faces, but RZA is also in this movie, only as a sort of cameo, only as a bit part, but significantly did the soundtrack for this movie. So both as a component of the movie overall, and also as a sort of short cameo. Okay, would we recommend this movie?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a weird piece. It's a weird one. So, like, my caveats would just be to, like, sort of describe that to somebody. Like, hey, this is not something you've seen before.
It's definitely an artistic film.
I literally, like, the very first bullet I have is underlined nothing else like it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing else like this on the market.
Even with the title and seeing Forest Whitaker in a movie called The Way of the Samurai, I had no idea what to expect.
No.
Because I've never seen this style of movie before.
Another thing that might be of note in the pre-spoiler section, this is one of the very few pieces of information I had about this movie before watching it. This movie is a part of the Criterion Collection, so, like, to give you a sort of, like, bead, perhaps, on its quality. It's not the kind of movie to, like, let's say, snub your nose at. It is, from a filmmaking standpoint, a very well-respected movie, a movie that people are interested in sort of, like, you know, hunting down and seeing, but it is definitely, I think, harder to get your hands on because it's not very well known, but among, you know, film aficionados, which I would not necessarily classify us as, but among film aficionados, this is a notable piece.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen 55 movies.
Right.
And you saw 27 Dresses, so technically you've seen, what was that? Like,
lots of dresses.
82 movies?
I think that's 82, yeah.
80, you've seen 82
I
things.
think that's
Math.
accurate. Yeah.
Math-ish.
Yeah.
It's math-ish.
But it feels like this movie didn't have a lot of money, like production to it, you know? However, I don't feel like they were overreaching. It felt like they accomplished everything that they wanted to.
Props and costumes were simple.
Yep.
Technology was modern but not flashy. And I feel like most of the budget was probably spent on making it look presentable. So I think I would agree there. The production did its job.
Yeah.
Well, and given the quality of, like, the script, the quality, clearly, of the director, all of this stuff, it kind of suggests to me that the level of quality that they were going for was a very intentional choice.
Yeah.
I think they wanted, like, a little bit more grit.
Yeah, they
You
could
know?
have punched well above their weight.
I
and
think they
did
could have,
not.
yeah. I saw this funny thing. It was like a meme today, and it was like, you know, first-year film students, and it was like a table of shit, and everything was labeled, and it was like, great scripts, great camera angles, great props, great, you know, all this stuff, great audio, and then it was just like fancy cameras, and the person in the meme is just like grabbing the thing that says fancy cameras. And I feel like this movie is a great example of somebody who understands that you don't need fancy cameras to make a good or fancy movie.
Yeah.
And I think their choice of cameras was very intentional.
Right.
And even if it wasn't, they fucking nailed it.
Yep.
I would say. So I would recommend this. Like Mark said, it's an unusual movie. You've probably not seen a whole lot of stuff like it, if anything. And so for that reason, if you're the kind of person who, like, struggles to get outside of Finding Nemo for, like, quality cinema, maybe this isn't the movie for you. If you're a person who struggles with understanding a movie beyond just simply what's happening in front of you, you know, this movie's got a lot to chew on, and I think that's part of its appeal. So maybe this isn't the movie for you. Other than that, I would say general audience probably fucking jam on this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Okay, are we ready to wap 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 wap
Wap, 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 wap. Wap, wap, wap. I like that.
That was, that was gorgeous.
Mark, we didn't even max out the thingy do.
Yeah. No, we set it right where it belonged.
Yeah.
We picked it up. Oh, we put it back down.
It's good.
Very gently. Very delicately.
Okay, how the fuck does this movie start?
Starts with a bird.
With a bird.
With a bird.
In the same way that maybe a Jacob the Liar, you know, had a little piece of newspaper just floating through the wind. This had a bird.
A pigeon.
You know, was it a passenger pigeon?
Yeah.
Carrier pigeon?
A carrier pigeon.
One of them.
I think the passenger pigeon went extinct.
One of them male
I believe
birds.
I believe that point was made.
Yeah.
Dude, that guy.
In der moving good.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I mentioned it earlier, but like the caricatures. This movie is full of caricatures, at least specifically when it comes to like
the mob.
Yeah. I appreciated it for what it was, but like it was like a collection of 50, 60-year-old Italian guys. You know, they were all caricatures.
Popped collars, sport coats, gold chains, very little hair.
What are you talking about?
Hey, yo, Vinny! Hey, Bally! What are you doing?
It's a lasagna!
Vinny, Louis, Handsome Frank.
Of course.
Handsome Frank, by the way, we forgot to mention this, pre-spoilers. Handsome Frank kind of plays the Italian mobster in a lot of things. He was in Man of the House with Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Chevy Chase. He was the villain. He was the main villain in that. Plays Frankie. Of course, it's Frankie.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting his last name, but
Yeah, Frankie, Angie,
Paulie,
Of course.
Nicky.
It all ends with E's.
Yep. Except for the
the boss and the underboss.
and anybody who's got like a particular like nickname.
Yeah, Ray and Sal.
God damn.
But it's not just Ray. It's Big Nose Ray and, Rocky Sal.
Well, in this case, Ray was Mr. Vargo.
There you go.
Mr. Vargo.
Vargy.
Yeah.
They call him Vargy Ray.
Vargy.
Nah,
Not to his face.
Nah, you call him Vaggy, then you do it once, okay? Once. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Slimming with the fish.
Otherwise, they handle it.
I gotta go take a Vargy.
Well, you show respect.
I think I dropped a Vargy earlier today.
Yeah, I pinched a Vargy.
Vargy's a made man.
So, what does this bird do?
He flies mostly.
Yeah,
Carries
Get
things.
down on that.
Yep. A bit of a passenger, if you will.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you like a broad strokes of this movie, and then we can get into more of the sweet deets in a second. This movie has a particularly unusual arc or storytelling style in that Forest Whitaker plays an individual who is sort of obsessed with the idea of the samurai code and living by a code. And he, I think, not that I'm like studied in the samurai way, but I think he rightfully interprets it as sort of something that is independent of like time and space, right?
I would say obsessed is the wrong word, though.
Right. So
I would
you're
say
right.
devoted.
You're right. Yes, devoted. You're definitely right.
Yeah.
Obsessed makes him sound like a fucking weeboo.
Yeah.
Yes, devoted to this idea of the samurai code. And he rightfully sort of interprets it as this sort of thing that's independent of like time and space. It's something that could be applied to any potential situation and any potential generation. And so the movie intersperses snippets from the book that he reads regularly.
Hakagare?
Yeah, easy for you to say.
Yeah.
I got one of those on my back.
Right.
Man, Mark, will you scratch my hakagare? The samurai code, right? So he reads sections of the samurai code, and there's a voiceover, and it actually shows the words on the screen, which is actually really fucking cool. And like a lot of Japanese writing of the time in, feudal Japan and shit, a lot of it sort of rides the line between like advice, philosophy, and a codified worldview and code. So like when he's doing this, he's not reading shit that's like readily interpretable. It's the kind of shit that like the author expects you to chew on and really think about, and how would this apply to my life, and how would this apply to the situations that I encounter. And so that's the beauty of this movie, is it's constantly going back and forth between Forest Whitaker's life, which is very regimented and sculpted by his ideals and the code that he lives by, and the specific passages that are informing his behavior. And it's fascinating from that aspect. I would love a rewatch of this movie, because like I feel like as much as I do think I got a lot out of the passages, I think in a rewatch, I would be able to chew on them a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I would be able to pull out meaning from this movie watching it 10 times. I feel like the 10th time I'd still be like, oh, but then this means that, and that's why he's doing this. And
right.
It's a very deep movie from that perspective, which again is probably why it's in the motherfucking Criterion
Collection. Because it's hard to chew on the passages when you're paying attention to the events of the movie. So it's just kind of a through line. And if it was a little bit more, on the nose and a little bit more obvious in meaning, it would be easier to attach it to the situation at hand.
Right.
But I think you're right in that, like, this deserves careful attention and repeated viewing to really pull more out of it.
Yeah, the code is not like, don't eat barbecue ribs without a napkin.
Right.
Like, great, very informative, very helpful words.
Very applicable.
But not something you can say, like, think about for a while and sort of marinate on.
Right.
Now, here's the question, and I'm not trying to answer the question myself by asking it, but do you feel like these passages are more rich than the narrative of the movie merits? Or do you feel like it's all equally, like, think
Oh,
this is,
like does every single thing in the text apply to the events of the movie?
Yeah, like, do you feel like this is the director or the writer, like, throwing up some, like, genuinely ambiguous philosophical...
No, I don't think it's ambiguous. I think each passage has to do with that particular section and probably other sections of the movie.
Well, certainly, but, like, are they leveraging it too much? That when we go back to the movie, are we dropping down to, I don't know, do you feel like
Do you feel like the passages
gravitas of the
overwrote?
weight? Yeah. Does it fit the narrative, or does it feel disjointed to you? Like if we did rewatch it, is the narrative of the movie of the same, I don't know.
On the same level philosophically.
Yeah.
I see.
Are they overreaching?
I think that's the thing about like a lot of, philosophical writings and shit like that. Shit that's really fucking esoteric is like, it's always written in such a way that interpretability is so open that you can apply it to any situation. So like, it's the whole like, what's the sound of one hand clapping? And somebody's like, yes, obviously children's birthdays are important. And you're like,
Deep.
Okay, you got something out of that I didn't get out of it, but that's fine. Like that's kind
of the point.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of the point. I think that's kind of the point of this code, right? It's like some of it, even the stuff that seems really fucking strict, it's phrased in a way where it's like, it's there's some blurry edges there. And so while I think that there is knowledge to be plumbed and plucked from the phrases that are put up there that is not present in the movie, I think there's more that you could sort of like chew on and interpret that's not represented in the actual narrative. I do think that every passage was chosen with intention and applies to the events of the movie. And I think it's not all readily apparent, which is why I think a rewatch of this would be amazing. And probably not just one, but like 5, 10, 15 rewatches.
Yeah, like if you were to dissect it, read the passage, and then watch the scene that passage references a couple of times, how much is like buried within the camera angles, within what's happening. I would be genuinely curious to see how much time was spent.
Also building on that, I know we haven't really even gotten to the narrative yet. So if you're still listening to us like wax philosophic about this fucking movie that you haven't seen or even understand, I promise you we're getting there. But there is also a through line in this movie where people are just fucking watching cartoons and like these old shitty cartoons, like not shitty all of them, but like.
But it was like Felix the Cat.
Yeah, Betty Boop was represented. Woody Woodpecker.
Yeah.
Itchy and Scratchy.
Yeah.
Which
a lot.
I love Itchy and Scratchy, but like these very violent, most of them, and also like most of them pretty old. Itchy and Scratchy maybe not so much, but like the other ones are like I would say pre-70s.
Yeah.
And so it's this through line where like especially the like mobsters all watching cartoons throughout all these scenes, and the cartoons also have sort of like this referential nature to the narrative. So while you're watching, you're paying attention to the cartoon, and something that's kind of similar to what is going to happen or just happened in the scene is sort of called out by the cartoon. And I think one thing, whether it was intentional or not, I'm sure it was intentional, my interpretation of that is like this beautiful juxtaposition between what is considered sort of objectively highbrow philosophy coming from samurai masters in feudal Japan out of this book, this tome of enlightenment, and this sort of like lowbrow, from the gut, cartoony kind of relationship between the events of the movie and the cartoons, right?
Yeah.
The events of the movie relate both to the philosophical book that's really like, heavily referenced, and the cartoons, and this like squishing these two things together, this like well-respected philosophical text and this like lowbrow cartoony depiction of what's going on is interesting and also like thought-provoking.
Yeah.
In like a lot of really like, again, I just want to fucking sit around and think about this movie some more.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, we got to get to the narrative. So, Ghost Dog, motherfucker kills people.
A lot of people.
Yeah, it might be easier to describe the events of the movie than it would be to go beat for beat.
Okay, so Ghost Dog is an assassin.
A hitman for hire.
Yeah, he's a contract killer.
Well, he started off as just a guy on the street.
You know what? I'm going to take that back. He's not a contract killer, and he's not an assassin, if I actually analyze his motivations.
Yeah.
You go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, he was jumped just on the street when he was a young man, and a mobster decided to intervene and saved his life, and that changed his life. It doesn't really go into where he was before this event, but he has chosen to devote his life to repaying that debt to the mobster.
Yeah.
By handling the mobster's business whenever he's asked.
So he became this mobster's, I don't know if Ronin is the right word, but
retainer.
He was his retainer. He was his guy.
But he did it on his own terms.
Right.
So he didn't feel like a hitman, like you were saying.
I definitely regret saying hitman. I think on the surface, that's what he was.
Yeah.
That's what the mobster needed from him.
Yeah, to anybody who doesn't understand his code, that's what he was. It's funny you bring up we don't know where he was or what his life was like prior to becoming Ghost Dog, but there is, I guess, sort of like subtle suggestion in that scene where he's getting beaten up. He's wearing like a white button-down shirt and it's got like Japanese writing on like the collar and the shoulder. So like the implication, at least from my perspective, is he was already really maybe he was a fucking weeaboo.
Yeah.
Like, he was really into like Japanese culture and like the idea of the samurai, perhaps.
Maybe he just really liked sushi.
Yeah, maybe maybe he was a sushi chef.
Yeah.
Who knows? But ultimately, it was this event that sort of like codified in him that he was going to live his life by the samurai code. And he ends up sort of like going off the grid, and he gets back in contact with the guy who, and we're not telling you this in the order that it's revealed in the movie.
Yeah.
This gets revealed a little bit later, his relationship with that guy, but essentially he ends up getting back in contact with that guy and basically saying like, listen, I'm your guy for whatever you need. Turns out what the guy needed was fucking mob hits.
Yeah.
And all I ask from you is that you pay me the price of whatever you ask me to do.
Once a year,
the first day of autumn. And so that's the deal they struck, and that went fine for what do you say, like 8 years?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then
did 12 perfect jobs.
And then suddenly Ghost Dog is asked to do a job, which he does flawlessly, and he kills, what's his fucking face?
Handsome Frank.
Handsome Frank. Which, I mean, you can't be too handsome.
As 60-year-old Italian guys go, he wasn't bad looking.
Yeah, in comparison, I guess.
Yeah.
But Mark did say blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
That's true, I heard it.
So that's an endorsement.
Yeah.
But there was a problem.
A small problem.
A female
Yes.
problem.
The boss's daughter.
Mr. Vargo?
Yeah. Mr. Vago.
Ghost Dog's got 99 problems.
And, yeah.
Come on, finish it, Jackson.
Nope, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to do it.
Damn it. I dangled the bait out there.
Yep, I nibbled. I nibbled.
You did.
I investigated that hook and I was like, nah.
I saw the bobber going up and down.
And Mr. Vargo's daughter
fishy
wasn't.
and it ain't me.
Yeah. So we
Fuck
had
you.
Ghost Dog had a witness. He took out Handsome Frank and I almost said Handsome Jack.
Right.
And that is a problem for Mr. Vargo.
I actually got the impression that the problem was not that she was a witness, but that she was Vargo's daughter. And they didn't want her anywhere near
The business.
the violence.
Yeah.
Like, it was that somebody got killed in front of his daughter.
Well, and Louis was on the phone with Handsome Frank before you heard me almost say it.
Yeah, I did.
He was on the phone with Handsome Frank before the hit went down, and he was talking about, like, the girl's crazy, the girl's a wacko, you know, the girl's a lunatic, you gotta stay away from her. And Handsome Frank was like, yeah, I heard you. But that was essentially, from what I'm gathering, that was a smokescreen on Louis' part to keep Handsome Frank away from the boss's daughter.
Yeah, because she was supposed to have been on a bus. She was not supposed to be present
Correct.
when Ghost Dog showed up. But anyway, the kill happens. Did we ever get a name for him other than just Ghost Dog?
No, it's Ghost Dog. That was his name.
Just Ghost Dog.
All right. Well, the dog leaves her. They trade a book.
Yeah.
I think she happens to be reading a book.
She was reading Rashomon.
Yeah. And of course, he's going to cue into that. Because the hit took place in front of the daughter, for whatever reason, Mr. Vargo...
He pissed.
Yeah, he's very upset, and he ends up sending everyone that he has to try to eliminate Ghost Dog.
The entire family.
Very unjustly. And Louis, to his credit, tries to fucking stop this. He's like, literally, the guy is invaluable. Like,
He's the best.
He can take out fucking anybody and leave no trace behind. Like, why would you guys do this? Just, you know...
Right?
He's a ghost,
You
dog.
got the thing that you wanted. That is one thing that I do feel like they probably could have, like... to your earlier point, Mark, put a little finer point on, like, why were they so upset that his daughter was there when the hit happened?
Yeah.
Other than, like, I mean, I don't want anybody killed in front of my kids either, but, like, at the same time, if I'm a mob boss and I'm trying to, like, take somebody out.
It happens.
And if that was the reason, fine. But, like, be very explicit about that, and I feel like they weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's
Like,
okay.
the motivation is kind of lost.
Yeah, and like bottom line at the end of the day, she wasn't supposed to be there when that went down. And I think the reason why, and this is just me like pulling theories out of my ass. So pardon if they smell a little funny.
Hot dogs.
Better than the gerbils.
That's fair. That was itchy and scratchy. That's a callback. But,
Yeah. But the problem was, Itchy was a boy and Scratchy was a girl, and you still got a colony up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
A colonyoscopy.
I see what you did there.
I don't like that.
Mark doesn't like that.
He wasn't afraid to go there.
We're gonna get those out of him.
What the fuck was I saying? Oh, right. So, my theory is the boss didn't want his daughter to know that they were hiring outsiders to perform hits on members of the family.
Oh, maybe.
Because
yeah.
Handsome Frank was, as they put it several times, one of our own.
Yeah, he was a made man.
Mm-hmm.
So, for them to put out a hit on one of their own and go outside of the family to perform the hit makes them look weak.
Okay.
Everything you're saying is totally, like, correct and, like, a good theory. But
they
also, like,
didn't-
it's his daughter. So, like, it's not like a third party unrelated to them saw it and could sort of, like, reveal this information, right? But then also, like, I feel like the fact that we're even speculating as to the motivation for going after Ghost Dog for that hit does not speak to the filmmaker's clarity as far as, like, the real motivation, right? Like, we wouldn't even speculating if they were very clear about it.
Yeah.
But I think your theory makes the most amount of sense. You know, I just wish they would have said it.
Yep, and that, like, again, to Colin's point, the fact that we are pontificating on this is a plot hole. It is a failure in storytelling.
Well, hang on, though. Hang on. I think that a reasonable argument could be made that much of this movie is left open to interpretation. And so if you're struggling to fit things together and you're trying to find reasons for actions, well, maybe that's exactly what they wanted.
And that's possible, too.
I don't think that's the case.
I don't.
But I think that I could argue that point.
Also, I think we cannot forget about the nature of Ghost Dog himself and how that may have factored into this. I mean, the guy's like a one-man army.
Yeah. And that's the movie we're watching. That's the genre of movie we're watching.
Check.
That time, I didn't see it coming. But that made me so mad.
Jackson is turning colors over here. He's purple right now.
I would say magenta.
Magenta's a bullshit color.
You are mauve.
Oh,
God. Okay.
sure, pick on the colorblind guy.
So,
Purple is purple.
God, this leads to what is arguably one of my favorite scenes when Mr. Vargo and his
Goon Squad?
Yeah.
His consigliere.
Yeah. When they're confronting Louis about who Ghost Dog is and how you met him and all that. Definitely, I think, the most comedic bit. I mean, this is where, like, almost all of the levity of this movie was.
Yeah.
I will say there are a couple of other scenes, and they are peppered in at the most... Like, the filmmaker was amazing at blindsiding the audience.
Yeah.
On a couple of occasions. Or should I say on a couple of things. One, violence. Like, the filmmaker's very good about, like, bringing the heat fast and, like...
And furious.
It fucking startles you. And then also, there are, like, 4 or 5 moments of, like, levity, which I totally agree with you. This is the main one. Mm-hmm. But there are, like, a couple of others where it's just like, why is there a joke there?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's very good at confusing the audience. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and the way that they're not even jokes. The way that the humor, the levity is delivered. Again, I'll go back to it. They're caricatures,
Oh, it's absurd.
and it felt like you were watching two-dimensional goons reacting to this event. It didn't feel real.
Yeah, because he's saying it out loud, and the mob guys are having the same fucking reaction that, like, the audience is having. You know, Louis describing his relationship with Ghost Dog, and this is where you get the exposition about his backstory and, like, how he intervened, you know, when he was getting, you know, beat up and shit. But then he goes into, like, I've only seen him twice, that first time and then one other time where we sort of set up this arrangement. You know, and I pay him the first day of autumn, and he wants it in a lump sum for all the work done the previous year, and, you know, the mob guy's like, the first day of autumn? Okay, we'll come back to that. And then they move on, and he's like, yeah, and then, he only communicates through...
He's like, how do you contact this guy? And he's like, well, he's off the grid. He doesn't exactly have a cell phone, so we communicate with a bird.
And then the mob guy's like, did you just say he contacts you through a fucking bird?
What kind of bird?
What species of bird?
So good, because it's fucking absurd, and I do appreciate that they brought characters in the movie along for the ride with the audience, because you're like, okay, so this dude is a sort of inner city black dude with kind of a hard look, not a gangster, but looks like he
looks rough.
Yeah, he looks like he wouldn't shy away from throwing hands. Lives by the samurai code, keeps pigeons, and only communicates his goings on through pigeons. Carries a katana.
Only pays in cash
once a year.
Sounds like a joke.
It does. It's on paper, it's not the most serious
and
movie.
You wait for the punchline, and there's no punchline.
No, you just...
Yeah, and the way that Forest Whitaker, portrays it, it's so straight.
Yeah.
It's he is invested. This is who he is. He's not doing it for laughs. There's some scenes where he shoots some guys and he puts his fucking gun away.
As if it were a katana. He waves it around like a katana and then sheathes it.
Yeah, but it's not a bit.
No.
It's just something he does. The first time I laughed, and then the second and third and probably fourth time it happened, it was just a mannerism. Yep. It's just what he does.
It was just he did it again.
Which is I feel again, the beauty of the filmmakers going there, right? Because it's if this guy is so fucking dedicated to this code that he's willing to do the things that he's doing, he's willing to do the lesser shit too, right?
Yeah.
If there is something in the code that says you have to flourish your katana twice before sheathing it, or maybe it doesn't say that, maybe it says flourish your weapon twice before sheathing it. Well, his weapon is a fucking...
silenced pistol.
Yeah, it's a pistol, and he's got a sort of underarm holster, so he's gonna flourish his pistol twice before he puts it back in the holster, and it's totally not funny or ironic to him at all.
It's just a part of his code.
It's part of his code. It was really brilliant of them to bake in something that, from the outside, seemed silly, hilarious, and over the top, because it actually does end up illustrating his dedication to his code, right? Because somebody who's really dedicated to these things shouldn't give a fuck what something looks like or how silly they might look. They don't care. The goal is to hold fidelity to the code,
and the second true to yourself.
Yeah, and the second you start breaking that because it doesn't look cool or it makes you look silly, then you're no longer abiding by the code because you're fucking picking and choosing.
Right.
Yeah. That was good.
He had so many cool toys too.
Oh yeah, he had that weird thing that would just hack cars.
Yeah, he had doors. This little black box that he would press a button and it would emit a signal, and he could hack the keyless entry and the push button start on a car. He could hack security gates and keypads. It was like a digital skeleton key.
Which is weird, because this movie was 1999.
Yeah.
And
keyless entry and push button starts were pretty new.
Yeah. He definitely did that on a car that would not have had that.
I initially thought the two cars that he did it on were they were his cars, that
I thought so too.
That he was holding. The one thing, to your point, that suggests that maybe it's a universal thing was he used it on a gate.
Yeah. Right.
It was a plot device. I mean,
It was interesting fine. Though.
Yeah.
And they did a little bit of groundwork in terms of making him seem savvy with technology, and he's in there soldering shit, and it's not like this is new to him.
One of my favorite things though about he had this briefcase that he carried with him everywhere, and it had his pistol, it had a knife, it had some cash, it had his little button tosser, but he also had this little black CD case. And every time he stole a car, he would put a hip-hop CD into the CD player.
For those of you born after the year 2000, a CD is short for compact disc.
Yes.
And it was the way we used to carry our music back in the Stone Ages.
Case logic.
Yep.
As long as your Discman could fit in your Jinko jeans.
Fun fact, I bought a CD recently, and it was delivered today.
Wow. What are you going to play it in?
My truck, which has both a CD player and a tape deck.
What's a tape? And why does it need a deck?
That is a very good question.
Do you have to resurface that deck or stain it or anything?
You don't want to do that.
No?
No.
I feel like it has to do with magnets.
Motherfucking magnets. How do they work?
Science.
How do they work?
Magic.
Yeah.
Sorcery. All of these are the same thing.
Okay, back to the movie.
So, Ghost Dog is being hunted by the mob.
They're just killing people indiscriminately.
Yeah, no, they are going from rooftop to rooftop looking for anybody who keeps birds, and they are fucking killing people. And it's horrible.
Yeah, they put a hit out on a large black man living on a rooftop surrounded by pigeons, which apparently in this part of town was not relegated to a small number of people.
Yeah, there's several dudes who fit that description.
Yeah.
I wonder if that is true in, like, major cities. If, like, there are people who keep birds. Because I feel like it is depicted in movies.
It's
not infrequently.
It's enough of a caricature that it happened in multiple movies and Marvel's Spider-Man for PS4.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to, like, stick with being hyper-specific and be like, I wonder if in large cities there are larger African-American men who keep birds on rooftops.
And live by the samurai code.
I've never thought of that. Maybe.
The thought has literally never occurred to me before now.
Actually, that does bring up something else that is not narrative related that I wanted to talk about, was like they went to like extra lengths to make sure that like you don't know where this takes place.
Yeah.
This takes place in nondescript city A.
Yeah.
Felt like a suburb of New York.
I was to say, one could make an argument that it was somewhere in New York.
The reason I know they went through the effort is because there is a very clear scene where he is switching license plates.
Oh.
And the license plates get depicted very, very clearly, and none of them have states.
Yeah.
No.
And it says some generic shit like the highway state.
Yeah, industrial highway was one of them.
We're like, okay, it's the highway state.
Yep.
Great. I don't think that's a thing.
That's all of them.
I'm pretty sure they all have those.
Why they're called interstates.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so Ghost Dog's being hunted. Meanwhile, you also meet a few other tertiary characters. Ghost Dog meets a little girl in the park. Perline, which is actually a really pretty name.
Very pretty.
And she was a really good actress.
She really
We didn't mention her in the cast, but she's a really good actress, which is crazy to think about now that she is probably our age.
I was to say, she was what, 12 in the movie?
99, so she's our age.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
She's older than me, but not by much.
This girl probably is like married with kids now, and it's crazy. But she was a little girl in this movie.
Yeah.
And
she's in her late 30s.
Yeah. And she basically exists as a way for him to demonstrate his humanity and then also pass the proverbial torch. So they bond over books, and the entire arc sort of suggests that his code, his way of looking at the world, is going to sort of live on through her. So she talks to him in the park, they talk about books, and then in that same scene, he also introduces her to another tertiary character who is a Haitian man who runs an ice cream truck. And one of my absolute favorite things about this movie is that the Haitian man speaks French through the entire movie.
Exclusively.
None of the other characters speak or understand French, and there are no subtitles. And so the filmmakers have intentionally included a character that nobody, including the audience presumably, unless you speak French, which
I picked up like
how many
15 words.
How many people speak French? It's like 6, 7 people?
Bunch of French people.
See, French people.
Win a war outside your own country and we'll speak your language.
Yeah, France. We just lost France, guys. This is not good.
That's fine.
Not good.
They weren't really proud.
It's okay, they were going to give up anyway.
Oh, my goodness. He's
Did I do that?
he's a spicy. So this fella, I love the fact that they included a character that, like, literally nobody can understand, but at the same time, you totally understand him.
Yeah.
Like, he speaks with such a sort of open and interpretable affect, and based on the way he is speaking,
And the context in which he is speaking.
and the context, and maybe some of the words a little bit, and the reaction of the other characters, like, he is a very real and important character that just somehow you never understand.
He's conveying a message.
He is.
And it was never for the
Yes.
bit. I don't think ever did they make a joke out of like not being able to understand him.
Once.
They made one joke, and it was the best. It was when he first introduces her to him, and the guy gets down this kid's book about bears, and he's like, showing her this kid's book about bears. And
he's very passionately reading this book about bears.
Keep in mind, you just learned that this girl is reading Frankenstein, the
Night Nurse.
The Night Nurse, which is some smut novel. And then, was it The Soul of Black Folks, I think?
The Soul of Black Folks.
And something else. And then he hands her fucking Rashomon, which is not responsible.
Not a good choice
that is
for
not,
a child.
Not responsible. And so... she's clearly beyond like the 5-page children's books on bears.
This is like a fucking board book.
And this guy is like very excited to show her, so he's like going through it. And this is where you learn that like Forest Whitaker does not speak French. Ghost Dog does not speak French, and she goes, "What's he talking about?" And he goes, "I don't know, bears, I guess."
Yeah. But okay, all right. So outside of that, that's when you're like first introduced to the character, and he pops up several times throughout the movie. They don't make any more jokes about it.
No.
Like,
no.
This character's confronted with like real heavy situations and continues to exclaim himself in French.
And the only way he can.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't speak English and nobody speaks French.
Yeah, there were times where like I thought that like maybe he was shifting into English and I just wasn't picking it up because he was talking too fast because of how everyone else was just accepting it.
Yeah.
You know? But no, it was good. I'm glad they stuck to it.
He was a beautiful character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was so creative.
It was awesome.
Yep.
Because at first I was like, oh, I can't understand him because the loudspeaker's bullshit. No, I can't understand him because he's speaking fucking French.
Yeah.
Like Haitian French.
Yep. It made it more real because he wasn't meant to be a joke.
Nope.
You know, even though I think now, I mean, if you were to see a character in a movie nowadays that didn't speak the same language as the rest of the cast, it would be done as a joke.
Or it would be subtitled so you could understand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be a plot device.
Especially if they spoke as much as this guy spoke.
Yeah.
Like, this guy was a fucking character, and he spoke a lot.
He had a lot. He had more lines than Forest Whitaker did.
And you understood none of it.
Yeah.
I would be curious to like have some subtitles to find out if what he was saying was consistent with the narrative in it. I feel like it was. I don't
just make Alyssa watch it. She speaks French.
Yeah. It just felt so genuine that like if you make a friend that you can't really communicate with, like it just, I don't know.
I think it also
real.
like it served the extra purpose of illustrating that Ghost Dog is one of those people who like genuinely does not need somebody who speaks to him or understands him in order to have a connection,
right?
And to like, you know, make a friend. Which again, another thing that I wanted to bring up that's very consistent throughout this movie is there seems to be a lot of like sort of mysticism and animal connection, like connection to nature, which is something that seems like maybe it was important in the samurai code, and so it is important to him, and it's something that you see as the audience member highlighted again and again and again, from his connection to his pigeons to this like random pit bull that is staring at him several times.
Multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a bird that lands on the end of the barrel of his gun at one point.
Yep.
There's a scene with a black bear. Over and over and over, animals are sort of like shown to be revered and an important component of people's lives. And I think his ability to connect with the man speaking French is sort of an extension of that, in that he can form connections, make appreciations, and have deep emotional bonds with beings that he may not be able to like understand intrinsically, you know, which is phenomenal, right? That like it runs that beautiful spectrum from like something as simple as a pigeon all the way up through somebody who he can actually, you know, communicate with.
Yeah.
But he does not discriminate. Okay, so he's getting hunted and then he kind of flips the script.
Yeah. One of the little bits, one of the segue pieces, he's talking about just being direct. Of course, I don't recall exactly what the quote was, but basically that the way of the samurai is very direct.
Yep.
You know, that if it needs
beat
to be
around
done.
The bush.
Yeah, if something, I forget exactly what it was, but
it was the best way is to rush headlong in.
Yeah, but it was like if a decision, it was something about 7 breaths, you know?
Yeah. And then there's one that's like, if a decision is serious, make it lightheartedly. If a decision is trivial, you know, think about it for a long time, kind of thing. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that was one of them.
Yeah, if it's serious, just
rip the trigger.
And if it's not, you should contemplate on it.
And then, a different one was like 7 breaths before you make a decision, and then make a fucking decision and stick to it.
And that was really cool. During that exposition, when he was like reading off the 7 breaths passage, he like pulled a floorboard to the side and like grabbed a key, and then did like a block puzzle to find the lock, and then unlocked it and pulled up this secret trapdoor that had like his stash cash, and it had a fucking like rifle case and some cash and some other various hidden trinkets.
It was like a John Wick moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, his like go bag. His like, we're fucking going to war.
Yeah, because
we're going to war.
He goes to his rooftop and finds that his pigeon sanctuary has been decimated and all of his birds have been killed, and there's like a dead bird in his bed, like classic mafia hit. And so he goes all John Wick and pulls his secret stash out. Mm-hmm. And that's when it goes into the quote of, a samurai should rush headlong into something and like dive in head first, be direct and be discreet.
And fitting with that passage, not the exact next scene, but like the next 15 minutes is him killing all of the mobsters.
Yeah.
Fucking up motherfuckers.
He opens the gate, drives in, gives them some sort of line about some fake name, and then gets out of the car and just starts wasting these mob guys.
Yep.
Like, no hesitation, just like motherfuckers are rounding the corner and he's just popping them. Like,
Yeah.
Yep. And this was the first time where I felt like, okay, this is the movie coming to an end.
Yeah.
But it's not the end.
It felt like it could have been.
Yep. Was it Vargo that wasn't present?
Yeah.
No, Vargo.
Vargo was present.
Vargo's the main guy, the main bad
It was the
baddie.
underboss.
It was
the underboss.
What was his name?
Was
That wasn't Louis. Louis was.
Fuck.
We'll call him Paulie.
He's Paulie.
Paulie.
Probably wasn't Paulie, but like it was Paulie. Fuck it.
But yeah, it's interesting. I would say in this movie,
Sonny.
Sonny.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
Sonny Valerio.
Yes.
What do you think, Thummy? I'm your son. I'm a hothead. Whatever we do, we should do it quickly. In a rage! Without even thinking. Preferably in that state where you're half awake and half asleep. Okay, so the
Can't help himself.
The actually kind of weird part about this movie is that, like, the underboss was more of the bad baddie than the boss.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why we got a little confused there. So it gets established, has, like, this weirdly intimate knowledge of the mob and their sort of, like, structure and, like, things about them. One of them being where the fuck this guy's secret hideaway house in the fucking woods is.
His little castle that he retreats to, his safety zone. Ghost Dog knows exactly where it is and how to get there.
Which is what he uses the, like, black box to open the gate of.
Yeah.
And then he goes in, fucking kills, like, what?
Just about everybody.
12 guys,
Yeah.
at least.
Yep.
Including the big boss. And the big boss, okay, I don't know. The rest of these guys are just, like, your prototypical, like, mid-60s Italian-American gangster types. The big boss, though, that dude looked like he may be a little bit Japanese.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was, like, just me applying that filter to him, but, like, in addition to kind of looking a teeny tiny bit Japanese.
Just in like facial structure?
Yeah, but he also, like, in the movie, he exhibited traits of the samurai code, right?
Yeah.
Like, he understood what Ghost Dog was doing. He had a very specific and sort of, like, perceptive understanding of Ghost Dog's code. And when Ghost Dog actually came to kill him, he took it in the way that a samurai would, right?
Yeah, he stood up, he buttoned his coat, he addressed him politely, and just stood there and took it.
Yep, and he wasn't running, he wasn't trying to fight back, he was like, you bested me, and now I will die with honor.
Yep.
And he fucking stood there as long as he could with a couple bullets in his chest, sunk back into his chair, and that was him. And it was just, like, so fucking samurai.
Yeah.
It was so fucking samurai that, like, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, I'm applying my understanding of the movie to this guy, and maybe thinking, like, oh, maybe he does look a little Japanese. Or B, wouldn't put it past the filmmakers to cast somebody who was like a quarter Japanese or something like that in that role, because he really was the guy who was on the same level as Ghost Dog.
Yeah.
He stood out.
He did. Yeah. He did. And he, like, even when they were being hunted, like, clearly, he understood it. Ghost Dog sent him a message, and it was, I forget what it was, but he was basically like, it's the poetry of war. And you're like, oh, fucking shit.
Yeah. Fucking Sun Tzu.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But Ghost Dog conducted those hits prior to killing the underboss.
Yeah. Yep. So at this point, I almost wish this movie had ended right here because it felt satisfying to me.
Yeah.
But we still had some loose ends to tie up.
Yep.
He
still had to go after Sonny, who wasn't at the castle.
Yeah, why?
That's what I wanted to know. I wanted
been.
to know why the underboss wasn't there. Everybody else was.
Because we needed more scenes.
There was another guy that was not there, too, that was with the underboss.
That's true, yeah. The underboss had his own thug.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You gotta have a thug.
Yep.
Come on. Go to Thugs R Us. Pick out a couple.
Yeah.
So he shoots up the castle, blah, blah, blah. We get this scene where Louis and one of the other...
Vinny?
Of course it's fucking Vinny, I think I got a cousin.
Yeah, you beat me to it. Are we related?
Such a good movie, though.
It is such a great movie. Two Utes. Excuse me, what?
Utes.
Two Utes. Excuse me, Your Honor. Youths. Sorry, go ahead.
Fucking great.
Okay, here's an issue I have with this movie, and I'll spend more time talking about it later when we talk about dislikes, but, there were many scenes in this movie that I felt didn't need to be there.
Okay.
The scene where Louis and Vinny are leaving the scene. I don't know, maybe you guys would disagree, but,
They're rushing to a hospital because Vinny is bleeding out in the passenger seat, and Louis has just been shot in the shoulder for the second time.
Yeah, Vinny dies.
Yeah, they get pulled over because they're speeding, and then Vinny wastes the cop, and they keep driving, and Vinny dies anyway.
Yeah, and fucking Louis goes, "Jesus, Vinny, you just iced a woman," because the cop was a woman. To which Vinny replies, "Louis, you're a real chauvinist pig." Fucking,
it's a good line.
But it is just
and then he just dies.
Of all of the things that he could have said in that moment, I didn't think he was going to criticize Louis for calling him out for killing a woman when he knows that he wouldn't have called him out for killing a man. You're a real chauvinist pig.
And then he's gone.
So that scene, I agree, totally unnecessary.
But there's a lot of scenes like that too.
Yeah.
Kind of like montages where he's silhouetted against the sky and he's just practicing with his katana that he never ends up using. I don't know. We'll go into more of it later. But
I'd be interested to know if on a rewatch you feel differently. Let's load it up. Jackson, lights.
Camera.
You got it.
Action Jackson. Okay, what other... He goes back to the park?
Yeah, we mentioned he killed the underboss and the goon that he was with.
Yep. Such a cool way, too.
And then he goes back to the park for the climax, which is...
hang on. What you alluded to, the underboss killing, one of the most, unique kills I've ever seen in a movie. He goes into this guy's basement.
Yeah!
Okay, let's just put on our we're having fun with a movie hats here because it's absurd. The premise.
It's so great.
But he detaches the drain pipe for this guy's sink, and then it's hard for me to accept this. But he ends up just shooting up the drain while the guy's up there fucking brushing his teeth or some shit.
Yeah.
And just kills him through the drain.
It was super badass.
It was so cool.
Yeah. But definitely made the broad assumption that there was no P-trap.
Well, the other best part about this, so we talked about the cartoons being a through line. So right before he makes this hit through the drain pipe, his goon is sitting there watching cartoons, and this cartoon, the guy aims the barrel of his rifle into the downspout of a gutter and fires, and it travels up the gutter and into the bathtub to, take out his target. Minutes later, you watch him fire a shot straight up the drain pipe. Again, no P-trap. House was full of sewer gas. Just wastes him right through the drain.
Yeah, sure, the concept is ridiculous,
But it was so cool.
Somehow that made it not any less cool.
Yeah.
It was still, back to the whole, you've never seen anything like this movie. First of all, describing it sounds fucking stupid. But, when you're watching it, it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's a very good idea.
And it's not played for jokes.
No, it's not. So following taking out the underboss and his goon, he goes back to the park, meets up with his Haitian friend and the little girl.
And has a final farewell.
Yeah, he's kind of doing a sign-off kind of thing.
Gives him his briefcase.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's one of those things where, I think this is something that's a through line among the samurai with respect to, their own code and, all, the codes of honor and all this shit. But also, in a lot of stories about samurai is, the conclusion is always unhappy.
Yeah.
They meditate, and there's even in the very beginning of this movie, one of the passages that they cut away to is basically every day you should meditate on death, and you should think about the inevitability of your own death every single day, and it will motivate you to stick to your code and live with honor, because you will be dead whether you live by the code or not.
Right.
And so stick to the code and your death will be honorable and your death will mean something. And so you kind of forget about that until this final scene. And it's the final showdown with the person who, in the context of the movie, he would consider his master. He keeps referring to, in these passages and in his speech, keeps referring to like a samurai respecting his master, listening to his master, committing seppuku when his master dies, all of this shit, right? It's always about the master and respecting them and the devotion of your life. And so in this final scene, he's squaring off against the person who he views as his master, the guy who saved his life 10 years ago or so. And he basically squares off with this guy kind of high noon style in the middle of the road, both with a sort of wide stance. And Louis just fucking kills him, puts 3 in his chest, and he kind of slowly walks forward with these holes in his chest and eventually collapses and dies.
I mean, Louis kills him, but like, I still feel like he won the shootout. You know, like, he wasn't trying to kill Louis.
Oh, no, not at all.
He threw his gun down, he took the shots, kept peacefully, calmly walking forward, handed him, like, a book at one point.
Handed him the Rashomon.
Yeah, and then, like, it felt as though he decided that was the end and he was going to die.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he got shot and he died from his gunshot wounds. Sure. But, like, the way that Forrest, like, carried himself and the way that the scene played out, it felt as though he was done and this was how he was choosing to end his book.
It was the only logical conclusion for him.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't kill Louis.
No, he absolutely could not kill. That's his master. He could not kill Louis. And there's another through line. Louis says at one point,
Louis is warning him that the family has put a hit out on him. And Ghost Dog says, "Better me than you." And Louis responds with, "Well, on that I think we'd agree."
And so that is another through line that gets brought up several times, is like Louis is viewing this from a very like sort of narrow Western gangster kind of view. And he's like, yeah, better somebody else gets fucking killed than me.
Yeah.
Ghost Dog is viewing it from this very, like, Eastern, dedication to your master samurai code kind of view. And
Better me than you.
And he's basically saying, it's better that I die because I'm not the master.
Right.
It's better that I die and that you live on. And he understands that, like, if Louis doesn't take him out, there's going to be suspicion and there's going to be investigation, and Louis probably going to end up dead.
Yeah.
So he's basically, in some ways, sacrificing himself for Louis' sake.
Because if Louis dies, so does Ghost Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost like an Obi-Wan Kenobi when he was killed in New Hope. He just sort of accepted it.
Yep.
So you didn't feel like he lost,
There was only one way it could end, and Louis decided it would end that day.
Yeah. Yeah, because he went through that whole bit where he's giving away his effects to
Ramon.
Yeah. That's kind of... Wait, is that it? Hang on. Because this movie sort of like ends many times.
There is one extra scene. This scene is the reason why I brought up the idea of like...
Passing the torch.
Passing the torch to
Perline.
Because there's a short scene where she is sitting in her kitchen and her mother is sort of standing there. You only see her mother's legs because she's... Perline sitting on the ground. Her mother's presumably making food or something like that, and Perline is reading this, Code of the Samurai after having read Rashomon, which is fucked up.
Right.
To those of you I've never read Rashomon, but Akira Kurosawa made a movie of Rashomon in 57 or something like that. And yeah, I need to rewatch it to be honest, but
it's some deep, dark stuff.
I do the motivation of the movie is rape, so it is definitely not for the lighthearted. I cannot believe he would give that kid that book, but the book itself is kind of a through line because he picks up Rashomon from the daughter of the mob boss when he does the initial hit. So she read it, then he takes it home, and then he reads it, then he gives it to the little girl, she reads it, and then she gives it back to him, and then he gives it to Louis at the very end, and then Louis shows it to the mob boss's daughter, and she tells him he needs to read it, and so he reads it. So, again, I feel like we probably should have rewatched Rashomon before watching this movie, because I feel like we would have understood that through line maybe a little bit better.
Yeah. But it speaks to this movie that, you watch the movie and you want to rewatch it with more context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah, because if I have a better, profound understanding of what Rashomon is and stands for, then I would understand a lot more of its significance.
Yeah.
And the way that this movie is structured and layered, I have every expectation that fully understanding, or at least having a better understanding of that piece of literature, I'm confident that there are through lines to this movie, just the way that it's structured.
Yeah. I think that's... And then roll credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
What do we like?
Okay. I really enjoyed the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Dude, soundtrack was fucking baller.
This movie slapped.
RZA killed it.
You know, even in like the weird, like disjointed bits, you know, like there were some, like, for lack of a better word to use, like hip hop tracks where it's just kind of like a bass line. You know, you might just hear like somebody like, ah! You know, like just like random shit, but like it adds to the
Discordant
movie.
saxophone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's a band name.
Discordant saxophone.
Discordant saxophone.
All right, we needed at least one.
We got a lot left in this. I think we will find those. But that one struck me. Discordant saxophone. They suck.
They really suck.
Sometimes they blow.
Ooh!
Yeah.
Because in order to make a saxophone make the squeaky sounds, you need to blow into it.
Firmly.
With the proper embouchure.
Yes. That's the sound of embouchure.
That is true. I've heard that from experts in embouchure.
Mouth experts.
Mouth experts. I've known a few of those in my day.
I think I dated a few.
They're really good at blowing bubbles?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
They can eat a Subway sandwich quickly.
Like foot long.
Like Connie Conehead.
Yeah.
Right?
Occasionally our wives listen to this.
Mine doesn't. It's fine.
The 1993 classic, The Coneheads with Dan Aykroyd. Okay, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Connie Conehead takes a Subway sandwich. The only person that Chris Farley's character, Ronnie, knew that could take a sandwich like that was his mom.
Fair. God damn.
You're welcome.
Other things I liked. I liked that this movie, like, jumped with both feet and never faltered. Like,
it did not apologize.
No.
And it struck a position at the beginning and it maintained it throughout the entire movie. And I appreciate that. Okay, so we're talking likes. I enjoyed the practical effects. You know, this isn't the kind of movie that is gonna. There probably wasn't any CGI, or maybe
I don't think there's a single moment of CGI.
But the gunshots, you know, we had the what are those called again? Like the blood packs, the
Squibs.
The squibs, you know, like the blood felt very visceral. It felt good. There was one scene, and you kind of alluded to it, where like the violence is sudden and aggressive. Ghost Dog shoots this guy in an alleyway, and like it just felt fucking real.
Because it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it was loud, and like the gun punched, and it was
like the guy drew a gun on Louis, and within a second, Ghost Dog puts 3 in his chest and just drops him.
Which I will say is one of the few movies that I can point to directly and say, like, I do think the surround sound actually enhanced this.
Oh,
like, having the subwoofer punch with that gun.
Yeah.
Like,
and the thunderstorm.
It fucking startled us.
yeah.
I jumped quite a few times.
I think the other thing that I enjoyed, I'll say, but I'm not going to elaborate on because I don't feel like it's my place. The cinematography in this movie was, I felt, phenomenal. Do either of you guys have anything to say about the cinematography?
Most definitely.
Real quick, I do have one thing to say about the cinematography before Jackson takes us down that road. There are a lot of things I liked about the cinematography. However, one thing I really, really liked were like the sort of tracking interstitial shots where he was oftentimes driving or doing his
Ghost Dog shit,
samurai shit on the rooftop, and the soundtrack is playing over him, and they really worked heavily with like overlay, right? There's like him driving, his face, maybe the city skyline, and like a couple other things, literally all of these images overlaid on top of each other. And I feel like they really fucking rode a tight line there. I feel like it could have looked stupid and cheesy, but somehow they made it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, piggybacking off of what Colin was saying, the shots of him driving through unnamed city number 1 and just like showing the real life of the city. The gangsters hanging on the corner, the prostitutes, ladies of the evening taking their johns, whichever way they're going, the people walking in and out of the bodegas, the real life of the city, like the breath of the city. And multiple times they would overlay a shot of a pigeon just flying through, and it was laid on top of this image of Ghost Dog driving through the city in his most recently stolen car. And I loved it. I thought it was so beautiful the way they did that. And I did make a joke within 30 seconds of this movie starting, because the movie opens with a sweeping shot of a pigeon flying over the city. And I said, well, cinematography, check. But, I mean, it's true. I loved it. The way that it was filmed, the perspectives, the angles, and it really demonstrated a particular love for the craft. Multiple times we saw him looking down the barrel of a gun at his next victim. Multiple times we saw a shot come from around the corner and then it pans out to see where the shot came from.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Wild West style shootouts. And one scene that I particularly enjoyed is all of the Goombas sitting inside of this abandoned Chinese restaurant, which was their headquarters. And in walks Sonny Valerio, and you just get this 360 shot of like a dozen really bored looking overweight Italian Americans making furtive glances and averting their eyes because they know they are on the shit list. They will glance up to see Sonny and then like very quickly look away, but the camera just slowly pans around the room in a 360, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was a really creative scene, and it's one to the next.
To the next,
in
to the
sequence.
next, to the next.
Every one of them, maybe a little glance, maybe, you know, like they all move their head, but like...
Yeah, one guy just straight up, like, the camera pans over to him and he just does this, like, huh, and just looks away very ostentatiously, just like, nope, not looking at you.
Yeah.
Another shot that I really loved so much that they didn't have to do. He was sitting outside of the villa waiting to take his shot on Big Boss Vargo, and we're looking through the viewfinder of his scope, and suddenly the scope turns black.
Mm-hmm.
And the camera takes you out of the shot, and he's just like, what the fuck is going on? And he sees this little red cardinal perched on the silencer of his weapon and just looks him in the eyes very, like, curiously, and then flits away.
One day I hope to flit.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, of all of the movements, it seems like the most gracefully quick.
I flit on occasion.
Have you flitted?
I have flitted. I flut.
You flut?
I flut.
Most of the time I try to flit, I end up flat.
Oh, yeah, you flit and then... Yep.
If you don't flit correctly, you will flat.
Yep.
You flit and then you flut and then you end up flat.
Yep.
Flip, flap, flip, 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 flap, boom, flap, 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 boom, bang, bang,
Was that Flava Flav?
No, I think it was Sir Mix. Wait, was it?
I
Who was
think
that?
it
That
was
was
Sir
a,
Mix-a-Lot.
no,
No?
it was not Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Sir Flips a lot.
Sir Flits a
It
lot.
was Gangsters Delight.
Sir Flits a lot. That, okay. Yep. Band name. Sir Flits a lot. Band name.
Yep.
Sir Flits a lot.
Is there anything else that we liked?
Yeah, so I had like 10 things on my list, and I feel like I've peppered a lot of these in while we were like sort of talking through the narrative, and some of the things that you guys have mentioned also were on my list. So to avoid, you know, kind of retreading that territory, I'm going to avoid things I've already mentioned. But just to be clear, there are a lot of things that I really enjoyed about this movie.
There's a ton that I love.
Things that we did not get to, or we maybe touched on too briefly. Great offbeat comedy and sort of shock and awe moments. Like, there were at least, I would say, 3 or more of each of those. Random bits of comedy or sort of like introspection that, like, you know, help the audience sort of acknowledge and sort of pass the idea of like how weird some of this is.
Yeah.
And it's just phenomenal that they can like pepper that in. It blindsides you, but then you're like, oh, okay, but we're still going.
Yeah.
And then same with the violence and the really aggressive, really shocking sort of...
The visceral...
Yeah, like, it's how hard it pops, you know?
The brutality, perhaps? Or...
Yeah, well, it's not the brutality that catches you, it's the shock.
Yeah.
There's a scene in The Joker, the movie The Joker came out a few years ago.
Is that the one where Jack Nicholson plays the Joker?
No. Or Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, he kills some guys that walk into his apartment, and that scene is probably the most violent in that whole movie, but that's very, like, shockingly violent.
Yeah.
And a couple of guys getting shot is run-of-the-mill. You see that all the time in movies. But in that movie, it felt real in a similar way that, like, this felt, like, brutal.
Yeah, and also, like, if you were watching, I don't know, fucking Titanic.
Yeah.
Right? People get shot in that movie. But it's like if out of nowhere, like, Leo just pulls out a gun and just fucking, like, blasts somebody's head off in the middle of, like, them trying to escape the water. And you're like, oh, fuck. Like, why?
Like,
what? Like,
wow.
It comes out of nowhere. It's really fast and it's oddly organic. And it just catches you off guard. And it's very effective. It's an effective technique.
Well, it's just like the first hit that goes down with Handsome Frank. You know, Handsome Frank's just sitting on the bed, and then suddenly he turns his head and there's Forrest and just wastes him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know we mentioned pacing. I wrote down that the pacing seems noticeably perfect. Lingering, but not distractingly so. Like, the pacing...
Very deliberate.
While you're watching the movie, you're like, oh, this scene's dragging on a little... And, like, you don't even get the thought through your head and the scene changes. Like, it's so well paced, in my opinion, that for tension, for, like, dramatic effect, they stretch a scene out as long as they can without it causing you a problem.
Like a piece of taffy. Like, they pull it and pull it and pull it, and right before you think it's gonna break, they move on.
Yeah. And I don't think that necessarily everybody's interpretation of the pacing is going to be the same as mine, but for me, the pacing was right on. And I feel like this movie, even with its sort of like false endings, even with them very intentionally trying to stretch out scenes, I feel like this movie felt like maybe an hour 35, not 2 hours. So yeah, I like that. This movie is such a beautiful exercise in contrasts.
Yeah.
Like, just so much, like, there's the comedy, and there's, like, this weird fucking, like, you know, samurai shit, and, like, it's just this weird back and forth that I really, really enjoy. And then the samurai code versus the fucking cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of, like, lending their piece to what's going on.
A gorgeous dichotomy.
Yeah.
I think that's all I've got that I had not yet mentioned. Jackson, what do you got for likes that we haven't mentioned yet?
It seems almost redundant for me to say, but I really liked the poetry of this. Just because every scene was intentional, and every scene was related to some passage that he was reading. And I know we've already talked about that, but like, to know a little bit more about the source material that these passages came from, and to better understand why those passages were chosen for each scene, I think I would be remiss if I didn't try to understand it and do a rewatch.
Yeah,
But,
I kind of want to read that book now.
yeah. And so the poetry of this, and the fact that several of the characters were clued in to his lifestyle and the way he operates. Like we talked about, the big boss was very much aware that he was living out the samurai code. Mm-hmm. And everybody else was like, the fuck are you talking about?
What is
He's just
this?
Some dingbat with a bird. Like, what?
Why is he doing this?
Why? Like, that's not how we do things. And it was so beautiful because it was just like, yeah, he doesn't belong, you know? He's an inner city black guy living out a samurai code and delivering messages via carrier pigeon. That doesn't compute in anyone's brain. And here's these old world gangsters going, the fuck you mean your hitman is a samurai
Right.
who communicates exclusively via bird?
Which, one of the great parts about that is the whole, like, non-specific location.
Yeah.
Is, like, I think part of it was trying to illustrate the idea that, like, the idea of, like, the samurai or the samurai code is not limited to a time or place.
Yeah.
Right? It is something that can be applied universally given the right interpretation of the code.
Right.
Is there anything we did not like?
I did feel at times the special sauce that made up this movie, it was a bit of a double-edged sword, you know. I felt a little disjointed at times for me.
I'll disjoint you.
That's fine, you know, go ahead. I'm here for it. But like,
He doesn't seem threatened, Jackson.
No.
They can't see your head shaking.
Oh, that's right.
there
we
we
go.
go. They heard it. They heard the shake. Some of like the scenes were like 30 seconds long. And it was more just like a slice of life, you know, like him sleeping on the rooftop waiting for the birds, or his Karate Kid moment where he's practicing on a rooftop. Some of it for me felt like it could have been trimmed out, but it sounds like maybe you guys took a different angle, so it might be subjective.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think there was definitely about 15 minutes of unnecessary fat that could have been trimmed. I think all of it was very intentional, though.
Right.
Like, it's not a movie that they were like, all right, we need to hit a certain benchmark to make this a 2-hour movie, so let's just throw in some B-roll and lay down some tracks and, you know, call it. I think they were very much setting a mood. I think they were very much, you know, warming up to their next movement.
I don't necessarily agree. However, I'd be interested with both of our perspectives. Not with you, Jackson, sorry, with you, Mark. I'd be interested what both our perspectives would be on a rewatch. Right? Like, if you would get more out of those scenes, or if I would get less out of those scenes, it'd be like, all right, maybe they sort of, like, belabored this, or, you know, vice versa.
Honestly, I think I would get more out of it, honestly. I think that there is enough to chew here that it would merit it. Even though on a first view it felt like it was almost too much.
Because to your point, Jackson, it all seems very intentional.
Yeah. Like, I think that his Karate Kid moment, while largely unnecessary to the casual viewer, would have been very important to understand the level of his devotion to the code. The fact that, A, nobody could see him practicing, and B, nobody was telling him to do it.
Yeah.
He was doing it out of devotion to his code.
And he wasn't exactly practicing with, like, the weapon he would ultimately be using.
Yeah, he was practicing with a katana that we never actually saw.
It was a form of meditation.
Right. It was like, the code said do this, so that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, and one of those passages said, that he should meditate on death every single day. And you saw him practicing meditation through mindfulness by laying with the birds. You saw him practicing meditation through decisiveness by the quickness of his actions. You saw him meditate in spirituality by praying at his shrine.
Honestly, the transition scenes where he was like riding in the car and listening to his music, those seemed very meditative to me.
Yeah, and so you saw him living his code in the quiet moments and not just through his actions. It did feel long. It did feel like 2 hours was just a little bit too much movie. And I think that there are certain scenes that I would trim that you wouldn't necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the scene with Louie and Vinny in the car where Vinny dies after shooting the cop, totally unnecessary and did nothing for the plot. That was 5 minutes that could have been trimmed.
Yeah.
That nobody would have missed.
I was here for all of it.
It was humorous. And like that scene did display a level of coldness on behalf of these gangsters that they really don't value human life. The scene where they were randomly shooting black guys that lived on the roof and played with birds.
That was fucked up.
Also displayed a variable coldness and a detachment from human nature. They saw this as this is their responsibility.
Right.
They didn't value human life outside of their family.
Yeah.
And so those scenes, while delivering a message, could have delivered the message differently and in a little less time.
I think everything else that I took issue with, I think I've already kind of alluded to. And most of the other critiques that I might have of this movie are completely washed away with its originality. And I'm absolutely accepting of all of the little weird things about it because I haven't seen anything like it before.
I think I'm in the similar boat. One of my biggest critiques was that I feel like the motivation for why they were hunting him was lost.
Yeah.
And I feel like they could have cleared that up. I also feel like they could have been perhaps a little bit more explicit with the role of his daughter later in the film, because her role seemed to shift.
Yes.
Almost into perhaps mob boss.
Yeah, I got that vibe.
They were very nondescript about that. Maybe that was intentional, I don't know, but as a movie watcher, I would love to have that been firmed up a little bit.
Yeah, I think there were some small plot holes that could have been resolved with just a little bit more exposition and a little less waxing.
And to Mark's earlier point about the title, I do think you're correct in that the title is going to gatekeep a little bit because people are going to hear that name and be like, no, I'm not watching that. That sounds stupid. Meh. But I also feel like this movie is the kind of movie that doesn't want those types of people watching the movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like it plays very nicely into one of the main themes of the movie, which was that exercise in dichotomies. Right? This name that seems so fucking absurd, once you watch the movie, seems perfectly reasonable. And that's actually one of the reasons why I did my best to protect you guys from the knowledge of it being in the Criterion Collection and Forest Whitaker being the lead and it having a very decent score on IMDb.
Yeah.
I didn't want you guys to know that because I feel like
it would have colored opinions.
Once you know that,
Yep.
and you hear Ghost Dog the Way of the Samurai, what happened with me was I was there must be something much more to this movie that's going to make that title seem less stupid when I watch it. And that's exactly what happens, right?
There was a movie that I saw with a girlfriend of mine years and years and years ago. It was a movie night and we picked a movie at random and we saw The Artist. And we were the only two people in the entire theater. And
that won Academy Awards.
While we were in the theater, it won Academy Awards. The next 2 weeks, that that movie was sold out. And I think if I had known that it won so many Academy Awards,
Your perception would have been
my
different.
perception would have been altered.
Yeah, I didn't much care for that movie.
I loved it. I loved it. I've never watched it again.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was really entertaining. It was fun to watch. The experience was good. But after hearing that it did so well in the Academy Awards, I kind of sat back and was like, but why though?
but really? But really?
It was good, but was it that good?
Right.
Are we ready to move on to Don Quixotes?
I think we did them all.
I think we did them all too.
I've got one.
I've got 7.
Okay.
Mark, how many do you have?
I've got 77.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, ease up there.
You went hard.
Thank you.
Too many.
Thank you. Is that one too many or
Well,
7 too
77, but we're rounding to the nearest 7. So how many do you have?
many? I got 0.7. I'm just gonna keep going with variations of
dare
7.
you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. You're gonna set me up. You're gonna toss a ball over here. I'm gonna look at it.
I'm going to toss my balls all over there.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch them fall to the ground. And I'm gonna pull out a wiffle ball and I'm gonna hit it myself.
What is happening right now, Jackson?
I don't know. I'm lost.
I think I had a stroke.
Lucky number 7.
Was it Lucky Number 11? Isn't that?
Yeah.
That is a movie. A good movie.
11.
It is.
On our list.
Yeah.
On our list.
Okay. So the one quote that I have, which is to say I have 7. This was just the goons kind of chatting back and forth about Handsome Frank. Oh, god damn. Yeah. Little Frankie. His death. And I chose it because it felt a little quippy and it also kind of illustrated just how their lives worked, you know? He said, "Oh, they whacked him. What are you going to do?" You know, it was very, like, casual. Like, this guy that has been, like, standing shoulder to shoulder with us for who knows how long. He's dead, but, you know.
What are you going to do?
And he says it to his uncle.
Came from the boss.
Yeah.
Like, this guy just lost a family member, and they're like, they whacked him.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Didn't staple his TPS.
That's what
reports.
happens.
So, quotes.
Okay, so I have 7 quotes, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Which is to say, I have 1 quote left. I've peppered the rest of mine in through the magic of narrative.
Yeah.
I've just sort of worked mine in. The one I have left is actually kind of a serious-ish quote. It's spoken by Ghost Dog throughout the movie, always to Louis. And he says, "I'm your retainer. I mean you no disrespect." And it's basically like his way of reminding Louis that, like, I work for you. You are the master. I am the apprentice. As much as you don't understand that, and as much as you find that weird and perhaps off-putting, it is my code that I have designated you as the master in this scenario, and my life and will is yours to do with what you will. And so he constantly said, 6 times maybe?
Yeah.
Says,
At least.
"I'm your retainer. I mean you no disrespect. You know, I don't mean to upset you," which is an amazing through line in this movie. Okay, are we ready to...
Riggedy rate?
Riggedy.
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 Riggedy rate.
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 You want me to start?
Go for it. Go for it. Quickly, Mark. Quickly. Quickly. Jackson, what do you got?
I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for you. I'm gonna wait for you.
I didn't think it would work.
I'm waiting.
I was just trying to fuck with him.
No, I'm patient.
Anyway, I'll give this movie...
I knew it was going to happen.
Mark, what do you got?
I'm gonna go 6.2
Okay.
bags of birdseed.
Nice.
Okay,
You picked
I
a
thought you were
metric
gonna
that nobody was going to pick.
I thought you were going to stop at bags, and I was like, is bags a thing?
Oh, bags are definitely a thing.
Bags of birdseed, though. That tracks. 6.2. Got it. Jorkson.
I'm going to give this a 7.1 drain pipe dust-offs.
Fuck.
Not a typical dusty environment.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I am going to give this movie a 7.5 chocolate ice cream cones.
Okay,
That
so
came up-
that was going to be one metric that I chose, but it was going to be unfinished ice cream cones.
Oh, God, he never
Because
eats one.
He never finished it!
Drives me nuts.
He ate the ice cream off the top and threw away the cone every time.
As
everyone knows, the waffle cone is the best part of the ice cream cone.
Without a doubt.
Why else would you get a an ice cream cone if you're not going to eat the fucking cone. Just get a cup.
Yeah.
Don't be wasteful.
Save it for later.
Yes.
To be fair, though, have you ever seen a samurai finish the whole ice cream?
Honestly, he's right there. I've never seen a samurai finish a whole ice cream.
I've never seen a samurai finish an ice cream cone.
It fits the lore.
Yeah.
It fits the lore. Thank you.
Damn it, Mark, with your logic.
That's right.
I just want to watch a samurai movie where they eat ice cream.
Eat the whole cone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't exist because this movie did its homework.
I have waffle cones in my pantry.
That's a euphemism, right? Waffle cones in my pantry. Or it could be a band name.
It could be a band name.
Waffle cones in my pantry.
Here we go. Write it down.
You need a shot of penicillin after waffle cones in my pantry.
Why do I feel like that's a ska band?
Because it is.
Waffle cones in my pantry. For some reason, the subject makes me laugh in that. It's like, not waffle cones in the pantry. It's
in
waffle
my
cones
pantry.
in my pantry. Ooh, I think I got a waffle cone in my pantry.
I have a quart of butter pecan and waffle cones in my pantry.
That's personal.
Oh my goodness. It's funny because it sounds vaguely sexual.
It's most certainly overtly.
It's most certainly overtly. Okay, so
We're done.
It's overt.
We are absolutely, completely finished.
Yeah,
Turn off the recording.
nothing left.
absolutely. Burn after reading.
Unless, which is also, it's an okay movie.
Yeah.
Unless maybe there might be something else, perhaps a scene score.
Scene score.
Scene score.
The click gets you
Yeah.
every time.
I'm not getting away with something sincere. First time I've let it too. I don't know if you guys noticed.
Corlin gave this a 7.5. Mark gave this a 6.2. Jorkson gave it a 7.1. That leaves us with our average score is a 6.9, which I think Jackson's going to be pretty happy about.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Pretty close to you. We had 11 respondents to our weekly familiarity survey.
And how many were familiar, Colin?
Oh, that's a great question. So out of 10, the average score was 1.8. And I got to imagine at least one of those was Pi.
Yeah.
So, not very familiar.
No.
Because this was a user submission. So, Pi, you're dirtying up our results.
Yeah.
Please keep filling out the survey. We love you. We need you.
Absolutely.
You're beautiful.
I can't verify that.
Neither can I, but I can I can imagine.
Yo!
Oh, yeah.
He is
I get
blushing.
Yes.
Put that away. Put that away.
Hey!
Not gonna do it.
So, 6.9 with the punch up due to the low familiarity score gives
6.9.
gives us a scene score of 7.9 on this movie.
Wow.
Which I'm so fucking
That punch is high.
I'm so down with that.
High in a really good way, though. Like,
It fits.
It deserves every bit of that in my opinion.
It's weird. It's good. Weird. And
Honestly,
good.
that's a good way. Like, I feel like if you had that 1,000-yard sort of nom stare and somebody asked you about this movie, you're like, yeah, it's weird. It's good.
Yeah.
Is that all we got?
I believe so.
Are we Lurdern? Okay, so we're Lurdern. But first, we got a few housekeeping items. First, we wanted to thank again Mr. Petey Pytek for submitting this movie to us on the movie suggestion form. I promised I would read his message to the wide world. How many people we got listening right now?
I think we're up to 4.9 bajillion.
Yeah.
Oh, they were going to stop at 4.9. We are the 4.9 people. We have 4.9 people listening actively right now.
4.9 units.
Yeah. 4.9 units of people.
Yes.
So, Pi's comments about this movie. Quote, the cinematography, period. I love the pacing. Oh, shit. I swear to God, I have not read this. Prior to recording this episode, I have not read this message. I love the pacing. The music! All caps! Exclamation point. Oh, and Forest Whitaker. Yeah, you goddamn right, Forest Whitaker.
Absolutely.
Pi, you're a gem, and we love you.
Wonderful.
Your opinions are accurate.
They are all accurate. Well done, sir. Well done.
I think we can establish them as fact at this point.
Yes.
We also have another mode of communication that came in.
Yes. Electronic mail.
The electronic mail?
Yes.
Would you send an email?
Oh! Yeah. Did you just shorten that?
Yes, I email.
That's clever. That's going to catch
That's
on.
very good.
Yeah.
That is
So,
good.
we got an email. We just got an email. We just got an email. Sorry. Little Blue's Clues for you.
Better than the orgasmic email that you've been doing.
Uh,
We just got an email.
oh, we just got an
God.
email.
Oh, God. It's the end. It's
the guy climaxed.
Yeah, he finished something that he started earlier on.
I can be happy for him, but
Nasty.
Not as happy as he is.
Bastard.
But Miss Grace.
Oh, is that Grisey Lafferty?
Yeah.
Okay. What's Grisey Lafferty
Yeah.
got to say to us?
She says, salutations, boys.
Hey,
It's
that's what we say.
That's a little callback, yeah. I heard there was a challenge issued, and I knew I had to protect my title of podcast enthusiast and hardcore friend.
She is currently number one, so
Absolutely.
that tracks.
Yeah,
that tracks.
That makes sense. I included a few pictures so that you can have Jackson, that would be me.
Is that you?
That's me.
Okay.
Confirm that it is definitely my phone, and maybe a few other things. Wink emoji.
Okay, A. She's suggesting that you have a very good idea of what her phone looks like.
I've seen it multiple times.
I don't even know what my wife's phone looks like. How do you know what people's phones look like?
I will have to confirm that it is
They
her
are
phone.
all like gray-black rectangles.
Right. I will have to confirm this when I see her next and interrogate her thoroughly and compare it to the photos.
Because she seems really sure that you know what her phone looks like.
I will.
Okay.
I will. I don't at present.
Okay, hang on.
Outside
and then
of
back
this
to the
photo.
winky face. Why
Yeah.
is there a winky face?
That is something that I will also have to investigate, because I don't know what she's alluding to, but I'm afraid.
Okay, so.
emojis are complicated.
Yeah.
And there may be a few other things. Oh, yeah. It's a bush.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
That's the other thing.
Wait, is that a photo of a phone listening to our podcast under a bush?
Zerbushen-Guden.
Zerbushen Gooden. Zerbushen very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's playing episode 25, Meet the Feebles. Good episode, by the way.
Yeah.
Really good movie. Really good
No,
movie.
it's
Y'all
not.
should
No,
listen to that.
It's
very good.
It's-
Ambergris.
It's not.
Very good.
Okay, I'm sorry. Mark gets extra points because, Ian McClellan. But let's be honest, he just had an Anthony Starr moment.
Yeah.
He just
Yeah, he
remembered the ambergris line
Yeah.
from fucking Meet the Feebles. Well done, Mark. I'm proud of you.
Yep.
Wait, hang on. So, since Grisey Lafferty sent us a picture of her phone under a bush playing our podcast, what does that mean?
That means she's getting a goddamn hat.
A
Yeah, she
motherfucking
is.
hat. A lid.
My favorite part of the photo that she included is that it was exactly 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the episode. Hashtag 420.
Ooh, that's a marijuana reference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it, oh.
Yeah, it's what some people do.
That's the weed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Blaze it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
The
heard
devil's
of
lettuce.
The wacky tobacco.
this. No, but seriously, have you guys ever heard of pot?
No.
I have a few of them in my house.
I had a cousin who did 2 pots.
He did 2 pots?
Whoa.
Died immediately.
Holy shit.
Wowza.
You're just real full.
You can't just go doing pots like that.
No, especially if you're like doing it right. You
Yeah,
know?
right.
When you put one in the other, and then with the heat.
Put the lime in the coconut and
then you drink it all
drink
up.
it all up.
Yep.
You get super duper high.
Yeah.
And then you
Die.
Yeah, obviously.
Did you guys ever hear man who stand on toilet is high on pot?
Ha!
I had not heard that, but I have heard that men who fart in church sit in own pew.
Yeah. But to round this out, Grace said,
I was really hoping you were going with another Confucius joke, but go ahead.
She ends this beautiful message by saying, "Hope I did you all proud. Sincerely, Grace." Grace,
Grisey.
Grisey,
It's French.
you done did me proud.
Yeah, and fucking won a hat. Good on you.
Yeah!
Well done.
Yeah. I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
Mark's jealous.
This hat will be hand delivered to you on a device of some kind.
Hand delivered on a device?
Like a pillow or a silver
Okay,
platter.
I got you. Like a delivery device,
Yes.
not okay. It's like hand delivered to you on your phone.
Here's a picture of
and in order to get the hat that's in this picture, you need to.
It's it's science.
Dive into the Matrix.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Grace. We appreciate you
Grace
as
fucking slayed it.
always. Honestly, my only problem with Grace is her opinions on the movie Stardust. But
Which
if
are
we-
obviously correct. But
Yeah.
other than
no,
that,
that's
yeah,
not what I was
totally
saying.
right.
That's not what I was saying. But moving on.
Okay, are we Lurdern?
I believe we are.
Yeah.
That is all for the All Correct Review. Thank you for tuning in and listening, because you listened to this whole fucking thing. Allegedly. If you have any ideas for movie reviews, or if you want to get involved and contribute to the Scene Score and get a sneak peek at upcoming movies by taking our short weekly-ish, ish means not fully weekly, but partly weekly, movie familiarity survey, email us at 3, that is the number 3, menandabasement@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can go to our website, that's tmaab.podbean.com. TMAAB stands for 3 Men and a Basement! Whoa! Also, be sure to check out Discordant Saxophone.
Or don't.
They are terrible. They're on tour now, but avoid that tour.
Nobody knows why.
However, they are touring with Sir Flitz a lot.
Oh, that's a show you don't want to miss.
No, he's not good at singing, but he really moves around the stage with some energy and sort of like...
And a surprising amount of grace.
Yeah, kind of manic energy.
Yeah.
Bit of a flit to flat.
And then, of course, opening for both of those bands is Waffle Cones in My Pantry.
Yeah.
I will never get over Waffle Cones in My Pantry.
It's not the kind of thing you get over. It's the kind of thing you remember.
I cannot say that almost without being like a Victorian baroness. Like, it's just, oh, no, there's a waffle cone in my pantry. Lord have mercy.
I do declare.
All of them are on tour now. And you can also find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you find your podcasts. And until then, I'm Colin McLeod.
Mark up.
Action Jackson.
And we'll see you in cyberspace.
Resner.
A waffle cone in my pantry.
It's good.